Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships. And the time has come for me to be honest. I never thought if I would ever reach this point in World of Warships, but I think I have as of this past week. And it's just time for me to be honest that I'm losing interest in the game of World of Warships. And this is because of many reasons, which I'm going to get into. I might have a more official video around kind of what I'm going to get into in maybe a week or two. It just depends on my time. But I need to be honest and just say I'm losing interest in the game. You've probably, those of you who are subscribed to the channel, have noticed that there's been a lack of content the last 2 weeks. It was a mix of some things doing in real life, but honestly coming down and like sitting at the computer and just being like, I really just don't want to play World of Warships today. And I kind of had an epiphany around this, I think 4 or 5 days ago. And I was just like, wow, like I'm just losing interest in the game. So with that being said, let's kind of get into some of the different categories. So first, what I want to talk about is just kind of my experience as a young WoW's content creator. I don't know if you can call me young in terms of my World of Warship content creation now. I've been doing it for 4 years now, something like that, since fall of 2020 I think is when I started this journey during COVID. But when I started my World of Warships journey, there was a lot of things I had to learn. I really liked the game. I'm a naval historian nerd. My grandfather served in the Navy, had some other relatives served in the Navy as well. And I just take a keen interest in naval war history. And so I started playing World of Warships mainly because of that, but also because of the videos I was watching of the Mighty Jingles playing World of Warships. And then like people like the Sailing Robin, who absolutely epic in playing the game, and other skilled people. But in the terms of what I want to say with this is being a young WoW's content creator and seeing other older WoW's content creators, even those who were previously community contributors, watching kind of them as they continued playing the game, that they began losing interest in the game. They began to become rather cynical about the game and also rather critical about the game, or rather than saying game, I need to insert and say wargaming. Talking about people like Flambass, Flamu, Mr. Gibbs, the Mighty Jingles to an extent. I think Solitude. I mean, there's a list you can enter a lot of community contributors who also were doing the WoW's content creation, because if you're like a YouTube content creator and you're kind of doing this making a living, it's really like ideal to also be a community contributor. Just it kind of gives you more traffic, so to speak, if you will. And so as I began my World of Warships YouTube content creation journey and watching kind of them fall out of interest and love of the game, mainly due to wargaming, I had the thought and I wondered, will I ever reach that same point? And, I think I have to kind of say yes. I think I've sort of reached that point now. I think it's been building for a long time. I mean, I always talk about one of the things I try to encourage people, players of any game, especially World of Warships, is to take breaks. Take a week off, take 2 weeks off or something like that. And when I've taken breaks in the past, like it's always kind of been healthy for my mentality in playing the game and coming back to it. And each time I've taken a break, then it's like been good. So, lately it's like, I think if I began taking a longer break, I kind of won't. There's part of me wonders, like, would I actually ever come back to the game? Like I say, I take 2-3 weeks off. Would I come back to the game after having that time off? And I can't say that I would be certain on that. I think I would still, mainly just because of how much I've invested into the game, how many ships, and the kind of the fun aspect of when you're collecting ships. Though I'm not giving WarGaming like a ton of money just to do that, because that's just dumb. It's their whole monetization scheme, which I'm going to get into. But I'm just reaching the point where I'm becoming more and more cynical and critical of the game because of wargaming. So let's get into the second point here. So it's really, for me, it comes down to WarGaming's decisions. Like, I don't know why people have a hard time understanding the concept of like you can like the game, but dislike the developer, and that's really defines me as a player, as a WoW's content creator really well, where I really dislike WarGaming, but I really like their game. However, it's hard to continue playing the game where the developer is actively, quote unquote, destroying their own product. And I would have to say, I'm getting to this point now, I'm like, I don't know if I see a future in World of Warships, right? How long does the game have before it begins to, like, die off? I mean, you're already seeing like player numbers. I mean, you had that artificial inflation during COVID, of course, but on NA, when I started playing the game in 2019, now it's 2025. I mean, I remember when I could play mid-tier and not have bots in randoms matchmaking, and like now I get bots. I remember when I could play operations in a prime time, and you'd always get a battle matchmaking like really fast, and now it's like sometimes you can sit down and be waiting. I've had multiple times this year and end of last year where you can wait 5 to 10 minutes for an operation to start on NA prime time and not drop, right? And of course now they've added more tiers into that, so it's another dynamic of that. In a prime time, I take out a tier 10 battleship or cruiser or destroyer or whatever, and then rather than it being a 12v12 matchup, it's a 5v5 or a 6v6. I mean, even some people have had like 2v2s and 3v3s and randoms, and it's like, what the heck is going on? So again, it's one thing to say, I like the game, but I dislike the developer. Like it both can be true at the same time, right? So this is going to be, I meant to say it up at the beginning, this is probably be one of my most rant-ish, and you don't see me like getting really rant like in terms of my voice and tone. Like I try to be a logical person talking things through and try to be very kind and that when I'm on person or whether I'm in the game. But to me, like WarGaming, there's 3 options with WarGaming at this point in time. Okay, one is WarGaming is incompetent. Secondly, they are intentionally ruining their own game. Don't ask me why. I have a theory or a thought possibly with that. Or 3, it's both. Okay? 1, incompetent. 2, they're intentionally ruining their own game. 3, it's both. Now, I think 2 is quite a hard sell, just to be upfront and honest, because if you have something that's making you a lot of money, why would you intentionally want to ruin your own product? And the only reason why I think number 2 is because of monetization in the game. I've wanted to make a whole own video on monetization, and I've referenced it in some videos in the past, but I just really suck sitting down and kind of getting that all those thoughts out, and I want to make a concrete argument and kind of write some things out in a Word document and kind of just work through it. But one of the reasons why I say that is because of how increased the monetization in the game has been, where now we have things like you fulfill these combat missions and you get a token which you exchange for other tokens to then buy the product in the armory, right? We have that going on right now in the armory, and there's just like a lot of things with that. But I mean, the level of monetization is so high, and the monetization is one of the things I believe is ruining the game. And this is my theory of why each year it seems like monetization is increased more and more. So it's one thing to be like, I believe like in the WarGaming office, of course, there's like people, whether they're community managers or developers, whatever you want to say, they actively want the game to be really well. So I don't want to just be very general and speak very critical of all those parties. But I wonder, I worked for a company once, and I kind of see this in WarGaming. And it was, okay, as an example, this company I worked for a few months before I put my 2 weeks notice in because I was just fed up and done with it, it was a franchise. And basically, you as an employee, you would get a bonus if, let's say it's for the month of February. February 2024, we did X amount of money in sales. If you pass that even by 1 penny in February 2025, we will give all the employees a bonus, right? And then that would be kind of the structure of how the franchise would work. But then you would have corporate, high level up, come in and say, well, yes, we see that you made this X amount of money in February in 2024. But in order for you to get the bonus, we're going to add, you have to pass that not just by like 0.001%, you now have to pass that sales target by 5 to 10% on top of whatever you did in February 2024. And so like you were always, the company didn't understand, or the corporate, and maybe even sometimes people in the franchise didn't understand like money is not a sole motivation for employees. And when you keep pushing the goal further and further and further out of reach, like we had this company where like a part of one of the departments had an 80% turnover, and losing people. Like it was like that bad. And I don't know why I even stuck around for as long as I did, but I was trying to like bring and be helpful in the company, things like that. In the same way, I have the theory about World of Warships when it comes to monetization, that you have higher up leaders in WarGaming who are saying, you made X amount of money in February of 2024. The game's X amount of years old now. We expect you to make even more than that in February 2025. Or also, we made X amount of money in 2023, 2024. We're expecting you to make us even more money in 2025. And then when you have that kind of pressure, like, or just like, get out or do it. Perhaps if you have that kind of pressure, then you have people like in the developers who are having to try to find new creative ways to introduce monetization in the game. And that's really hard because if you over monetize a game, you end up just pushing away your players. And that's especially true for veteran players of World of Warships. They've just pushed away a lot of the veteran player base because of monetization is one of the big things. Another thing is like game decisions, which maybe I can get into that later, but I want to stay on track with monetization. So now, I saw this, I think it's last year, they introduced the, I think it was some currency that you could use in the armory to get, I think at least it was for the Christmas event this year, or 2024 Christmas event, where it was like if you bought X amount of containers, you would get these like tree tokens or whatever, and then you would buy like fireworks. When you destroy a ship, it explodes and there's fireworks. Or it's I think that the first one they did was, it was more like realistic. It was a black and white type of magazine explosion, right? And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, they're gonna monetize exposing the graphics, the skin of like a ship exploding in the game, and they're doing that, right? Where you saw it, there's a notable shift with the Christmas event this year, in the sense of that they didn't want your doubloons, right? They wanted hardcore cash. When you looked between the option of buying Christmas containers in doubloons versus actual real money, where could you get the Christmas tokens? It wasn't on the containers that you could buy for doubloons. It was on the containers that you'd have to spend real money on, right? They want you to pay real life money because they know, like, I don't know if they've been complaining about inflation in their game, which to me is like a dumb argument for several reasons. I don't want to get into that now. But it just like pushed that we want your wallet. We want your credit card. We want you to swipe. So what? You've like gained a lot of doubloons. Like I was given a Christmas gift from my brother-in-law, and I used it on my birthday coupon recently. And I doubled, the amount of doubloons. Like you buy 25,000 doubloons, then you get 50,000 doubloons because it just doubles. It's like a 7-day coupon, right? And so a lot of people were doing that last year. And I've tried to make videos kind of highlighting it. Like if you want to pick up ships in the game, like, stockpile your doubloons, and maybe when we get to Black Friday, you can buy Black Massachusetts, Black Jean Bar, Black Alaska. And so what did WarGaming do last fall? Well, they made those ships unavailable to buy for doubloons. The only way you could buy the four, like, they kind of view as more like higher valued ships that they put a higher value on, was spending real life cash. And I was planning to buy Jean Bar Black last year. And then I said, no, screw you, WarGaming. Like, It's this greedy monetization. So it's all these little ways that I think that perhaps there's this pressure from corporate on different developers and trying to find new ways to monetize the game. And it's just really crappy. I mean, it's just running a game. I understand that WarGaming needs to make money. You know, that it's a free-to-play game. No one's forcing you to pay, but when you're getting to a point now in the game that if you don't, you're actually at a disadvantage in just playing the game in general, right? Even needing premium time. Like, you can play super ships and you will lose credits on them regardless, unless you have an insane game, especially if you don't have premium time. But if you do have premium time, you're lucky if you break this even. Like, you can do 150,000 damage in a tier 10 or a super battleship and still lose money, right? And so it's just crazy to see that monetization strain. I mean, even last year, I was quite upset with, I think they brought in some new, was it the Pan-Asian, Spanish commanders, where you have this like PG, I don't remember what the PG level was, like WarGaming has now gone through and they've increased the age rating of their game, but you had these girls in scantily clothed bikinis, leaving nothing to the imagination, quote unquote. And then like, yeah, we want to monetize this. And then they brought those commanders into the game and like you had to spend actually a lot of money if you wanted to get either one of them. And then after like a period of time, then they just made it available in the army from like a really cheap amount of coal and a really cheap amount of doubloons. And that kind of like irked the players in the game who had spent a lot of money to pick up either one of those very scantily clothed commanders. And it's like, This is a naval warfare game. Like, what does it necessarily have to do with having girls in scantily clothed bikinis play this game, right? And so, like, I submitted a ticket into WarGaming because I was very critical of it. The fact that they left nothing to the imagination, and I think they ended up nerfing a little bit of some of what was very, very, very suggestive. And other players did as well. And then shortly after that, they increased like the PEGI rating, like the Pan-European Gaming something information something, and then the rating that we use more North America, and they increased all that, and that was a great thing, right? It was really good that they did that. I was happy to see that. I mean, there's some things sometimes WarGaming makes decisions that I quite like, but most of the time it feels like they just really F it up, if I'm being completely honest. So it's just, when we're getting to this point now, each year, WarGaming is expanding the monetization into more and more areas of the game. You know, and one of the things I'm even wondering, like, you have the new, what is it called? These new test ships that they start off with half health, but you also get this like improved ammunition type thing. Like, are they trying to get to a point like World of Tanks where it's like you have gold ammo? Right, that you have to spend money for a specific type of ammunition that does even more damage, right? Like, that to me just feels like that's, I've wondered for years if WarGaming would ever go down that way, and it just seems like that's kind of an inch, like a little step in that direction. Now, I have no information, there's nothing concrete about it, but it feels like if this is what WarGaming does, and I think this takes us more into the third point, perhaps, in terms of their development decisions. I was really critical of the Waterline update. And I think I should have been more critical of it than what I kind of expressed. It was a very boring Waterline update for what WarGaming was thinking about 2025. But it was the classified documents, right? Which now there was a recent update that from Killer Bin with the community contributors, that the classified documents won't be present in random battles for updates 14.2 and have also been removed from the second round of public test server testing for 14.2. Future implementations of the classified documents in random battles is currently under review, with details to be shared at a later date. So you had classified documents as part of the D-Day event we had last year. And WarGaming is really keen on introducing something into the game, but not telling you that we're actually looking at making this a permanent part of the game in some fixture. I mean, you have something with pinata battles. They tried to do some of the gimmicks and buffs you could pick up into clan battles, and that was a complete flop. A lot of clans didn't play clan battles that year. You had super ships introduced into grand battles, and a temporary battle type or a separate battle type, and then they put super ships into randoms. They brought submarines into the game, and it was like submarine battles or whatever it was called, and they put submarines into randoms. You had arms race. It was its own separate main battle type, and then they brought that into the game, or arms race buffs. You've had, there's just the list kind of goes on and on and on. That these things that WarGaming is kind of trying to get the players, and part of it I understand is like in a sense that they want to introduce possibly new concepts in the game and testing it out to see how players will react. But I mean, the classified documents and the D-Day ops, like I'm like, oh, that was kind of cool. It's something a little different. Like I like it as its own setting. I like arms race as its own main battle type. I like the buffs you get in the pinata battle in its own separate main battle type versus randoms or in co-op and that. And then they're like, oh yeah, it tested well in these settings, so now we're going to make it a permanent fixture, looking to make it a permanent fixture part of the game, or they're just like straight up implementing it. And it's like, well, my feedback about the classified documents would have been different if I had known that you as a developer, that you as a company were looking at making it some type of main feature, like in randoms or whatever. Like to me, that classified documents is like beyond stupid. Especially in their Waterline update, they recognize that the game's becoming increasingly more complicated, and then they want to simplify it. And they said, we want to simplify it, but we want to bring in classified documents. And so you start off your randoms battle, and you look at, okay, I've got 3 ships I can nerf on the enemy team. Negative 15% less secondary battery damage from the GK. And I think also maybe it nerfed the main battery too, right? And so, maybe you're in that GK, you're shooting and you're doing damage to the battleship, and you're like, wait, I got a citadel, or my secondaries do this kind of damage. Why am I not getting the full value? I mean, excluding if the target that your secondaries are hitting is saturated or not. But it just makes it so complicated where it's like, why? Just because you use some magic pixie dust, you selected 3 ships at the start of a battle on an enemy team, and then now magically that ship is less efficient against your ship. Like, it's so dumb. Like, it's so stupid. And WarGaming thinks it's a good idea. You can talk about, the development decisions. You go back to Update 10.0 when they did the massive commander rework. I think World of Warships was the best before Update 10.0. Ever since 10.0, like, I think it's, for me, playing the game for the last 5 years, it just has been going downhill, like, every year since Update 10.0. Where in 10.0, they thought, hey, we'll introduce this skill called Deadeye, and we'll keep it in the game for 4 updates, and because we think it's a great skill, where a battleship player who shoots undetected by the enemy team gets an improvement on their main battery shell dispersion. So then you had brawling battleships. It changed the game forever in terms of the brawling atmosphere and meta, where now you have GKs sitting up on the B line or on the I line. It's like, and WarGaming presented the idea to community contributors before it even ever came into the game, and people even like Mighty Jingle said, no, this is a bad idea. You shouldn't do it. And that was a resounding theme among most all the community contributors and perhaps even the testers. And what did WarGaming do? They implemented it anyway. And this is kind of like, besides the monetization aspect, it's like WarGaming being like 90% of the time, it just feels like they're absolutely tone deaf. One of the last times they ever did a poll was on the unique upgrades. When I think back in the day, this was right before I started playing, you could get unique upgrades for, you had the propulsion, enhanced propulsion for Des Moines, improved accuracy of Yamato, the longer smoke layout of the Minotaur, those type of unique upgrades, whether it be in the 4th, 5th, or 6th slot. And it was like a combat mission deal that you did to attain those. And then so WarGaming put out a poll, hey, we're thinking about moving this into like the armory, like the research bureau and things like that. What do you players say? And like, I think it was at least above 85, if not over 90% of people said, no, we don't like that. We went up to stay as combat missions. And then WarGaming never did another poll after that. And they had already made up their mind that actually we do want to do this despite your feedback and what you say. I mean, if you don't think that I'm accurate in saying that WarGaming doesn't like feedback, they're absolutely 90% of the time it feels like absolutely tone deaf to feedback, then I would just point to, was it last year? No, over a year ago, where they nuked the official World of Warships forums. like the official forum that they use to talk with players, they're like, no, we're going to nuke it. And what it was, you have 3 days left to post anything. And then we'll give you like a couple months where if you want to save something, you can. And then we're going to absolutely wipe it off the face of the earth. They didn't even leave the World of Warships official forums up. He just absolutely blew it off the face of the earth. I think one of the reasons they did that, because there was so much like dirt and like things that players and community contributors like Little White Mouse was calling WarGaming out on or correcting them on. And it really became, I think, a part of this, like, if for people who engaged with the World of Warships official forum, I think it was I don't remember the English word. It was like a negative picture. It was a negative image of wargaming, because you could go back and you could look at things like the community contributor exodus that we had a few years ago. You could look at the complete PR disaster of the first Puerto Rico dockyard, the absolute dumpster fire of Little White Mouse and Shibetsu, and how wargaming, I don't understand. It boggles my mind. Their best community contributor who was like doing a superb job in the game, helping correct like, no, the turn circle radius of this ship isn't this many meters, it's actually this, went in test, did these phenomenal ship reviews. Their best community contributor, they completely alienate her and throw her under the bus and basically say, we don't actually care about you. I mean, ultimately, that was, a big part of that. And so then you had this community contributor exodus happening, right? And people say, earlier in the days, I don't get asked the question anymore, but like, hey, Flimsy, you're a community contributor, right? Or, why aren't you a community contributor? And my response would be like, do you see how this company treats their community contributors? They don't care about their community contributors. I don't recognize over half the community contributors or more, maybe 75% of the community contributors who are in the program now. I don't recognize over, let's say, 75% of them. I don't know who they are, right? Because you had so many community contributors that left in that massive exodus that it made, gaming news headlines over all that. So it's like, why do you think I want to be a quote-unquote representative where the community contributor program used to have like maybe a better voice between the players and representing the company? Why would I want to be a community contributor? Now, I get for those, I mean, this Jingles has pointed this out, like, if you're doing World of Warships content creation or something like more as your full-time gig, you're a Twitch streamer, you're whatever, then there's a lot of value for you being a community contributor. And I get that. And I don't, not hating on anyone who's in the community contributor program. I want to make that very clear. But it's like, the more you try to care about the game and give WarGaming feedback, to see again and again and again how they would treat their community contributors with complete incompetence and disregard, it's like, why would I want to be a community contributor? Why would I want to be someone who's trying to, it's, yeah, I don't know the words for it. So, there's a mix of that. I mean, it's just crazy. I'm just mind boggled at how they treat their community contributors. And I thought already they would nuke their community contributor program. I didn't think they'd keep it going because they moved to this more like a recruiter program or something that they have, where I just felt like it was too much of a risk. Maybe that was the English word I was looking at earlier. It was too much of a risk for WarGaming to keep the community contributor program going, because you have a lot of players who support the community contributors, and then when they saw WarGaming mishandle a PR situation, which I still don't think they have a PR department, mistreat their community contributors, then you get the players really mad, and they just like, yeah, I'm going to stop playing the game, this, that, and the other. I mean, what's really telling to me this year was with the Waterline update. So this is something else I don't understand about WarGaming, right? So back when I'm going to be very mindful on this topic. Back when the conflict started between Russia and Ukraine, or quote-unquote invasion into Ukraine, I don't know, it just depends on what side you're on and how you view it, and I'm trying to be respectful on this topic. You had a lot of people on NA, or there was a portion of players who said, hey, I don't support this, I don't like this. you know, this game has Russian ties and things like that. I'm going to stop playing the game because I don't want to support what I'm seeing in the news, whatever, and so on and so forth. So then WarGaming, they separated the studios. So you have WarGaming Studios, that's like the Asia server, European server, and North American server. And then the Russian server got moved off onto under Lesta Studios supervision, okay? And then WarGaming kind of made these big Billy steps because why did they do it in the first place? Like, I think NA is responsible for most of the money expenditures into the game. Like, North American players throw a lot of money at the game more than EU or Asia and Russia. So WarGaming very quickly makes a decision that, you know, we're going to separate the studios, we're going to separate the servers, and like we're not going to be so much Russia affiliated or whatever. And then with the Waterline update, like Lesta Studios and WarGaming dropped their Waterline updates both on the same day. You can correct me in chat in the comments if I'm wrong, but they both dropped them the same day. Do you think that's a coincidence? Do you not think that Lesta Studios and WarGaming still talks to one another? I mean, regardless if it was 1 or 2 day difference, but I'm pretty sure it was both on the same day. And then you have players sit down and look and say, I really like where Lesta Studios is going with the game. I really dislike what I see WarGaming doing. So then you had this surge of players. I mean, a small surge. I don't know statistically what it would be, where players are now downloading World of Warships from Lesta Studios. I don't know how to say the Russian name of whatever World of Warships is. And they're like, yeah, I'm done with WarGaming. I like the direction Lesta Studios is going. It seems like the more competent devs are behind Lesta Studios. It seems like the really core part of the art department is in Lesta Studios. I'm done with World of Warships with WarGaming. I'm going to go play on Lesta Studios. I mean, look at all the community contributors, or not community contributors, excuse me. Look at your Twitch streamers who are now playing more and more and more on Lesta Studios, as of recently late. Like, I mean, is that not a wake-up call to WarGaming Studios? I don't know. I don't know what it is. So it's just mind-boggling. It's just mind-boggling. So, you know, part of this where now I'm going to save that for the end. Let me move on to kind of another part, and then I'm going to wrap up the video because this is already going over 30 minutes long. But it's a long rant. I apologize, but I'll try to timeline this video. WarGaming's focus when it comes around veteran players versus new players. WarGaming does not focus on retention and keeping their veteran players, in the game. Instead, they focus on recruiting new players. Okay? Because of the direction that WarGaming is going, they probably know this, I don't know, that if ultimately the development direction you want to take the game, it really pushes the old players out. And so if they push the old players out with the development decisions, they need new players coming into the game, which you don't see that number. You know, the veteran players leaving the game versus the new players coming in the game. It's the ratio is that there's not enough new players coming into the game, right? So WarGaming over the years has alienated their veteran players. The players who are most invested into the game, really liked the game in the early days. I mean, when you're a company that's starting off a new game, you really need the player feedback. And a lot of people talk about the early days of World of Warships as being really great, really phenomenal. It felt like the community contributor program was quite successful, and then WarGaming listened to, you know, feedback from the players that went to the community contributors to WarGaming, and then WarGaming to the community contributors who kind of presenting information to the players in the game. That there seemed to be a lot of good direction, and once WarGaming kind of grew and kind of got into an old rhythm, they no longer cared about feedback. They become incompetent and 90% tone deaf when it came to taking feedback in their own game. Keep in mind, this is the same company that they didn't like one of their community contributors calling out how little time that the devs that were making a lot of decisions in the game had involved. So he blasted it out on making it available to players to see, and one of the devs in the company makes a code for the players that's essentially saying F you specific content creator. I think it was like Fu Turi. I think he was a Russian community contributor or something. So it's like, like seriously, I mean, come on. So it's just like seeing how they just are alienating the veteran players, pushing away maybe people who are very much naval enthusiasts. It's interesting. You go back in time. I remember when I first started playing Wargaming, they don't do it anymore. I think maybe they finally realized we have to stop doing this, where players would give feedback about some concept of the game. And I'm not saying it wasn't like it was dumb feedback from the players or it was the dumb thing that Wargaming did. It probably went both ways at various times or one or the other, where they say we don't like this specific how you have certain ship designed. It's too strong, it's too weak. And we're going to be like, well, that's we're trying to represent the historical image of said ship. Okay? So they'd have that argument. And other times when a player would argue about some realistic historical accuracy of some ship, then you would have, community managers or whatever in Wargaming say, no, it's an arcade game. Like, what the heck are you going on about? So they jump behind either argument whenever it suited them, but granted, Wargaming's benefit, they don't do that anymore, at least that I haven't seen. But they just push players away. You had, when we had Submarines added into the game, that was kind of the nail on the head for a good portion of the veteran players, because they got tired of being shotgunned by submarines. When you can have a submarine surface right next to you, dump all of his torpedoes into you and go right back under, and you had no clue he was there, that was really annoying. It was really frustrating. And then to be watching a World of Warships Twitch stream, and for community managers or other devs say shotgunning isn't a big problem in World of Warships. There's only very few people who do that. And then it was really funny that then I probably wasn't the same stream, or whatever. But then one of the Wargaming community managers got shotgunned by an enemy submarine. It's like there's nothing you could do, right? And so you had that, and they nerfed shotgunning to Wargaming's extent. But now, I like how Gang phrases it that submarines now are just like fidget spinners. So they'll stay outside of the range where they can't shotgun you, right? Or maybe 5, 6, 8 kilometers back. They'll ping you. Fire all their front torpedoes, and then they turn around, they fire their stern torpedoes, and they just keep doing that spinning cycle, that fidget spinner. And that's really annoying to deal with too, right? You have more overmatch in the game. I think there was a time Wargaming said we won't introduce more than a larger caliber than 4 and 60s in the game. There was a time Wargaming said we will never introduce submarines into the game. There was a time Wargaming said we'll never sell tier 10 premium ships outright to brand new players. And hello? All those have been broken, so you can't take wargaming seriously. And I think that's kind of this is going into the future going forward, the final part of the video. And for me, just in terms of my values and things like that, I really appreciate honesty. I don't appreciate kind of being gaslighted. I don't want to say if that's the right word to use here. In terms of being a player in the game, in terms of being a content creator in the game, to be seeing these things and pointing things out and saying, hey, Wargaming, shotgunning by submarines is a problem, and then Wargaming's like, no, it's not. Only a few players are doing that. It's not a problem. And then later them admit, oh yeah, it's a problem. Or telling Wargaming, Deadeye's a problem. You're breaking the game over Deadeye. You're ruining the game. Because no, we're not. Yeah, it's a fine. And then later, oh yeah, you guys were right. Yeah, Deadeye was bad for the game. Right, so it's just I think if I was now starting as a WoW's content creator, as example, let's say I just recently started playing the game, I don't have this whole back catalog of all the crap Wargaming has decided in terms of development decisions and monetization of the game. I mean, yes, there are times you're playing the game and you have people who are talking nonsense in the game. They don't know what they're talking about. And I'm talking more about player versus player interaction within the game, random battles and stuff like that. But I mean, when you tie up monetization and then you tie up wargaming development decisions, realistically, the game has shifted so much. I even want to do an own video of this on the F key buttons of all the new ships. I think if you look at the Pan American ships in the game, the battleships and cruisers, that whole tech tree is just funny buttons. Do you not think that doesn't power creep and push out older ships in the game? You know, the older Japanese, older American battleships in the game that don't, you know, the Montana battleship line, the Des Moines battleship line. You know, those ship lines do not have the funny button. You know, so it's just like, you know, you talk about classified documents, and you know, at least now that seems to be on hold. But you have these new ships that they're testing that are just demented in the hands of a skilled player, and very bad in the hands of a player who doesn't understand what they're doing, like the Oregon, the copy of Toulon, and then I think was it a German or a Russian, or yeah, Borodino hull with these new gimmicks and stuff like that. I think Flamu had a video on that, and there's probably been some other content creators who've had videos on it too, from the public test server, and it's just like, it's really dumb. It's really dented. Having a submarine in the game that now has like, I remember what it's called. This is a Suklov or whatever, that has a main battery gun on it, and you just like surface. And I'm not talking about a tiny little like sap gun that like, what was I-89 or whatever that submarine is, but like actually have like, I think 203s. It's like just like surfacing with your 203s and doing like a little like burst fire sequence and like going back under. I mean, the game, I don't recognize it from when I first started playing as an early player. Now, in terms of the future going forward, like, I want to be clear that I'm still going to be producing World of Warships content. I might start experimenting with other games. I don't really know. I think it's kind of nerve-wracking for any content creator when you start going into newer territory. Like, you know, for a time I was doing Armored Warfare, and then I got really sick of them constantly. You don't have a good development team behind Armored Warfare, and to get pinged constantly in their Discord server that the server is not working, it's back up again, it's not working, it's back up again, and then like no compatibility with NVIDIA graphics cards at certain points. You can go on a whole update where it's like, yeah, you have to go back to the old update of, you know. So I tried out Armored Warfare, and ultimately I just couldn't stick with it. I'm playing some other games now I quite enjoy, so I don't really want to talk so much about them because I'm just enjoying the fact I get to play them and having introvert time with that. But I'm finding more joy playing other games and doing other things more in real life all the time than versus World of Warships. So ultimately, I didn't feel like I could go on. I'm going to cap this video on the head. I don't feel like, for me, I could be honest and genuine if I didn't go ahead and have this conversation with you guys. And then I just kept like somewhat producing videos here and there without kind of giving you more of the context of why there's been a lack of content in the game lately. And I apologize that this is like now like a 43-minute video. I probably could have done it shorter, but really there's just a lot of things on my mind, and I just wanted to get them out. I was tired of kind of keeping it in my mind over the last week. So you get a 43+ minute video today, so apologies for that. So, you know, I'm not going anywhere when we talk in terms of World of Warships content, but I'm just like, this is my big rant. And I think I actually kept more well-mannered than I thought I would. So that's good. I really try not to be a toxic content creator or a toxic player in the game. I do try. But it's hard. The longer you play the game, I think the more cynical, the lack of maybe grace, mercy you can have, whether we're talking about WarGaming's development decisions or just like dumb things that you see other players, other opponents do in the game, and things that you haven't even instigated that just players in the game are instigating with you. So that's kind of humorous. So just being honest, I'm losing interest in WoWs. So we're just gonna have to see how that goes. So anyhow, again, apologize for the long video, but I had to get this off my chest. I had to be honest with you all. I didn't feel like it was. I really care about the community. I really do, especially the community that has grown out of the FlimsyLunchTray YouTube channel. I really like it. That's one of the things. Like, I do enjoy the game to an extent, but I really enjoy the community, and I really enjoy interacting with you guys. That has been some of the highlights, and that's kind of part of the reason why I'm able to like keep going, because of y'all. When I'm, it's nice to be, you know, when I do this upgrade commander build videos or highlight videos on ships or the veteran player guide, the intermediate, the beginner videos, and just like your guys' kind feedback and like newer players in the game who are saying like this has been really helpful. I really appreciate the time that you took in this Flimsy. Like that's really nice, and that really helps propel me going forward. So it's the community that propels me going forward, not wargaming by any means. So that being said, if you liked today's video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you want to see more. If you subscribed, thanks so much. Thank you to those who support me on Patreon. And let me know your thoughts in the comments in the game. You know, if you say like, oh, I'm a newer player, I haven't experienced so much of this, I still really like the game, or maybe you're a more older veteran player, or maybe you're just someone who just watches the videos but you don't play the game anymore. It'd be kind of interesting to have your guys' feedback on some of the things I touched in this video. So that being said, take care, and I'll catch you next time.